Do you want to get good at Marvel Snap? Well, lucky for you, I'm starting a new series, Top Player Tips, where I'm going to be giving you a ton of tips to help you improve your gameplay. In the first episode of this series, I'm going to be talking about telegraphing your plays. So in today's video, we're going to cover what is telegraphing your plays, about snapping those plays. Then I'm going to give you one tip, a case study on Symbiote Spider-Man specifically, and a second tip. First up, what is telegraphing your plays? It is when you are making it very clear what you are doing, and it can be good and bad. Sometimes what you're doing is just so powerful your opponent can't stop, they don't have the interaction for it, or they just straight up can't outpoints it. However, sometimes it lets them easily attack against you with something like a Shadow King or a Shang-Chi. This is the cause of countless lost cubes that you could have otherwise gained, and this is bad because it gives your opponent intel on exactly what you are going to do to them, letting them easily play around you if they can. Let's look at an example to show the power of this. First up, Black Panther plus Zola. It's the classic. It's been in the game for over 3 years. People know that if Black Panther's in an empty lane, that's going to get split with Zola across 2 lanes, and it's going to double again. You won't win many cubes playing Wong into Black Panther into Zola, but this doesn't mean necessarily you shouldn't play it. You can probably win cubes on it, just that you need to leverage it correctly. What do I mean by that? What I mean is you need to be sometimes snapping early. Sometimes when you recognize your opponent does not have interaction for your deck, you can snap early on these powerful plays. For example, maybe you're playing a Sauron deck, and you are very clearly going to play Red Skull in a lane, and your opponent is playing Cerebro too. They don't have a Shang-Chi, they can't interact with you, and you can snap early on that, and your opponent can't do anything, because your Red Skull is also afflicting their Cerebro. Maybe they don't have Mystique, and maybe your Red Skull dry is just big enough. Another example would be Fastball Special, your Nimrod into a Living Tribunal lane. They're going -12 if it's a Shuri Nimrod, and they can no longer generate the sufficient points needed to beat your Nimrod lanes, and therefore they will lose. And if you recognize this before you even play the Shuri for the Nimrod, snap. This is where you get your cubes. You don't get your cubes when the combo is all played out. You get your cubes before. Now, you also need to wait and not snap sometimes. You might have like your entire combo ready, the perfect draws, and you're playing you play your Symbiote Spider-Man, do your Black Panther, and you have your Zola in hand, and your opponent is playing Victoria hand, and they play a Hood to throw priority, and they Moon Girl their Shadow King, you think. This is a good time to not snap. It might even be a good time to retreat if your opponent snaps, because you are confident your opponent has the tech card that can derail your entire game plan, even if your draw is perfect. So the first tip I have for you is that snapping is conditional. Snapping is not one-sided. You don't snap on what you're doing or what your opponent isn't doing. You snap on what you're doing and your opponent isn't, or your opponent can't interact with what you're doing, stuff like that. There's conditions to snap on. It's not as clean cut as others may seem. It all depends on the game state, the board state, and your hand state, or what you think your opponent might have as well. A 300 power Man Spider in the face of a Shadow King is a 1 power Man Spider, or a 30 power Man Spider against Ramp, which doesn't run Shadow King or Shang-Chi, is still a 30 power Man Spider. So even though one of them might look 10 times bigger, it's actually only 1 power because the other opponent has a Shadow King. So your Man Spider isn't playing for 300, it's playing for 1. And snapping is also conditional depending on your matchup. No deck can match the power of Living Tribunal High Roll. It's somewhere you can hit the energy limit with a real good high roll in a mirror, but a ton of decks can interact with that meaningfully. Even Nimrod with a Fastball Special can decimate that lane. A single US agent just goes ridiculous against it. Even though you may have 1,000,000 points in every lane and you're playing against Sauron, and Enchantress is going to turn all of that off, and you're going to have like 10 in 3 lanes. Snap on your high rolls when your opponent cannot answer them or does not know what is going on. That is a good turn thing to snap. Your opponent may not know. You might have a Kang that hit Gore. Your opponent has no way of knowing that your Kang is Gore. You can snap on that because you've got a 320 in hand. Your opponent has no idea what to do with, or a 220 if you Quinjet it. Just stuff like that. Snap when your opponent doesn't know what was going on and there's something powerful, or on your high rolls when your opponent cannot answer them, preferably before you show them the actual high roll. Now, let's talk about Symbiote Spider-Man. I think this card sucks. Why? We're going to do a little bit of analogy, and I do not condone gambling, but this is an analogy for a different style of poker, we'll say, where there's 3 cards in the middle. but you're playing with an ace face up, and you have an ace already on the board, so you can have a top pair. That's pretty strong, right? Well, if your opponent has something like a king queen where they have no way really of beating you without getting extremely lucky, they are just going to retreat for one because you've already shown your face up combo that you have it. Now, if your opponent has something like three of a kind sevens, unless you have that second ace, which is very unlikely that you do, which would really just be lucky, you need to get lucky to win, your opponent's going to take big cubes from you because you telegraphed your play, they knew they could beat it, and your play is a little too strong to let go. And you can always get out if you want to, but because you're so strong, it's a little harder to get out of there. So the ace in this scenario is Symbiote Spider-Man. You're the ace in your hand, sorry. So what you're really showing is you're telling your opponent, I'm going to commit really hard to this lane, and if it's a Black Panther, I'm going to spread it across 2 lanes. And if it's a fallen one, I'm going to get a ton of energy. But basically, you're telling your opponent, I'm going to do something powerful in this lane. It would be a shame if somebody interacted with me with something like a Juggernaut, something like a Spider-Man, something like a Red Guardian. Just really just telegraphing these plays. It's weak. You're going to lose cubes for it if you telegraph that, and your opponent can beat you. Whereas you might win 2 of these scenarios for 1 cube, you're going to lose 1 of these for 4 cubes, and you're still going to be -2 cubes. That's just not a good thing to be doing. However, if you snap with these early, you might win 2 and you get out early here. You might still be up 2 if you only got out for 2 here and you won for 2 on both of these. Just a scenario of the snapping being conditional. You should snap when you're confident your opponent has no way to interact with you before it's too late to get value. They don't even see the ace. They might see the ace a turn late and then they know they're dead. Whereas in something like this, your opponent, you might want to be a little more hesitant when you're snapping, or even if you snap early, if you think they don't have the interaction, you're still going to end up losing. Now, this goes into tip number 2. Try not to telegraph. Sometimes your opponent just can't interact with your plays, and telegraphing them is just fair. It's just what you have to do. It's part of Snap for some plays to be easily readable. However, try not to do this when you can. If you can afford not to run a card like Symbiote Spider-Man that is very vulnerable to interaction and is very telegraphed, don't do it. Even if it might make your high rolls more consistent, you get outplayed more often. Maybe you win 2 extra 2-cubers and you're losing 2 8-cubers. That's not a good trade. I don't want to participate in that deal. So sometimes though you have to run them. Fallen 1-man Spider, you have to run it because it's one of your, you need the Fallen 1 energy really bad. It's okay. It's not an unplayable card. You can certainly play it. I just think it weakens your deck. In the few cases where I think Fallen 1-man Spider is really the only one where I gotta say, yeah, this card is definitely required. Obviously, there's like exceptions. There was earlier this year, there was a top player, but used a Galactus deck where he was using Black Panther with the Symbiote Spider-Man and really doing the inverse of this, making it so that he had so many possible lines that it was impossible for you to read what he was going to do. That stuff is so powerful, and that deck ended up hitting a rank 1 spot. So that kind of shows you how powerful this telegraph stuff is. If a deck hit rank 1 based only on this concept, really, this card can weaken your deck if you're just making it, oh, I'm just going to play my Symbiote Spider-Man into Nimrod, and oh no, they Juggernauted me, I'm dead. Just that kind of stuff is really weak. Try to keep your plays unexpected, and if you're going to telegraph your play, identify your opponent's likely tech and snap if they likely do not have an answer. This has been episode 1 of Top Player Tips. Let me know what you think in the comments down below, and leave a like and subscribe if you enjoyed. We are on the road to 1,000 subscribers, and it would mean a lot. Make sure to join the Discord if you want to have questions about this concept or just want to show me a deck or something like that. All good there. Have a good one, y'all. Peace.